Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We are back again on our session 2 for Back to Basics Practice Management LinkedIn Live webinar series. I am really excited today for my guests. I have Mr. and Mrs. Medicare. They are Jill and Rich Ohler, and they have well over 17 years of Medicare expertise, and we are going to delve into everything about Medicare. So I'm very excited to have this conversation. It's also just a reminder, it's around the corner. October 15th is Medicare enrollment. So and once again, it is a good time for us to delve into this topic. And I hope that you will find the information valuable. And I will have, towards the end, Jill and Rich Ohler's information if you need to reach out to them and have any, particular questions. And we will have that at the end of our session. So without further ado, I just wanted to give you a brief background about Rich and Jill Ohler. They have been in business for well over 17 years, as I said. They're carrying on the legacy of Jill's mother and father that started over 20 years ago. Jill and Rich have owned their business since 2008, and they're continuing to learn and educate about Medicare so that they can really be knowledgeable and able to take care of their clients. So without further ado, I am going to bring in Mr. and Mrs. Medicare. Hi, Jill and Rich. How are you?
Hi, Sharon. How are you? Good morning.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being our guest. I am actually very excited about this conversation. First of all, I have the Medicare experts here, and all things Medicare. And as I said, October is right around the corner, so Medicare enrollment is fast and furious coming, and I think this is our good time to talk about this topic. So let's dive in and start talking about all things Medicare. So my first question is, what are the types of Medicare coverage out there? I know there's several things. If you can kind of just give us, a brief gamut of what they are and explain what they are, so that our viewers are going to be patients as well as physician practices, and to get an understanding of what are those combinations of Medicare.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So there's the two original parts to Medicare, which is Medicare Part A and B, and there are some people that just get that alone. However, that only covers 80% of your health care. So it's definitely in their best interest to get another plan to go along with that. Typically, there's two options: Medicare Advantage Plan or Medicare Supplement. So those would be your two options. And then there's another part, which would be called Part D, which is your prescription drug coverage. With the Advantage plans, most of those do include the prescription drug coverage. If you go with the supplement, it's going to work with Medicare, and it does not include it, so you would get a separate drug plan. There's pros and cons to both of them. Medicare supplement, as I said, works with Medicare. It basically pays the 20% that Medicare doesn't pay. The Advantage plans, you hear a lot about those on the television. They're going to cover the benefits of A and B. They'll include the drug coverage. They have a lot of extras. But you got to look at where you want to put your risk. With the Medicare supplement, they have a premium, not a lot of copays or deductibles. With the Advantage plans, they because they're inexpensive, they can have copays and deductibles. So you kind of pay as you go. So depending on where you want to put your risk.
And the Advantage plans also work like an HMO or PPO. So you do have to have a network of doctors with those.
Got it. So let's a little bit on the Medicare Advantage. So, I think most, and I don't know the statistics on that, but I think I've seen a lot more in the Medicare Advantage. Folks are signing up for that. So you mentioned about being a network. There's a network of, in their physician that they can select. And you also mentioned HMO and PPO. Can I just get, what the HMO means and, what a PPO means briefly, from the descriptor? Does that mean do I have to have a primary care doctor as my gatekeeper in an HMO? And then is a PPO where it's, a preferred provider that I can, choose to have also a primary care doctor, but also, not choose a primary care doctor, but I can see specialties and so on. Is that what that means? I'm just trying to get some understanding.
Yeah. That's exactly what that means, Sharon. You're absolutely correct. With an HMO, you're Your network's a little bit smaller because you do have to stay in network. With a PPO, you have the option of going outside the network, but you're going to pay a little bit more for going outside that network. But everything you had said is correct. Yes.
Great. So I'm going to segue into the physician side of things. In a physician practice, I used to be many moons ago, worked in front desk. And even when I used to manage, physician practice, I also filled in that role from time to time when needed. So one of the things that, the challenge I found is that, when insurance updates and changes and, in terms of what the patient has currently in their existing, Medicare plan, and as well as, they might have changed, when the enrollment comes, they chose a different, company and what have you. I think one of the things are co-payments. Is that something that, is collected at the front when, I'm checking in, I patient have a new card? Is there anything that, as we're reviewing that card in front of us, that we should be made aware, that, oh, if I have, an Aetna HMO Medicare Advantage, or if I have a Humana, that type, that I will be collecting a copay at the front desk?
Yeah, I think it's really important for the front desk person to always look at the cards previous to the visit. Even if they've collected a card in the past, they're going to want to collect and to at least look at the card again when the patient comes in, just to verify that the coverage hasn't changed. And on those cards, it'll actually say on there whether they're collecting a copay up front. If they have an Advantage plan, it's going to be listed on there. If they have a plan called Plan G, there is no copay for that. And so they wouldn't be collecting a copay at that point.
I often say preparation, at the practice is always good. Being able to know what a patient's benefits and coverage is ahead of, their check-in. Would you happen to know where, as a resource, could we check, that a patient had, a new Medicare Advantage or a new Medicare plan has happened? And after open enrollment, for example, when does their new plan start? So it's two questions in that regard.
Yeah, so during the annual enrollment period, that's from October 15th to December 7th, during that period, we're going to look at plans for the following year. So whatever plans you choose then, they will start on January 1st of the following year. I guess, what was the question before, kind of leading up to that?
Sure. Is there like a resource where they can take a look at that, like a website perhaps, or something where they can, take
like the doctor's office could look to see what they
Correct. Yes.
I'm not certain about that. I do have access on my portion, like if I'm going to write a plan, I do have access where I could type in a Medicare card and some of the client's information, and it'll tell me, it won't necessarily tell me about a Medicare supplement, because that's a private carrier. But I do have access to find out if someone has an Advantage plan or Part D. It will tell me what plan they've had and how long they've had those. But I am not certain if the doctors have access to that or not.
Gotcha. So as a rule of thumb, if I patient X need to make sure that, also at the front desk when I present my card, just to make sure that they look at the card, I think that is what I heard is the best way.
I do think it's going to be your most up-to-date way of getting that information from them. And also it's very important to know that if they do have a Medicare supplement, their Medicare is going to be primary. So that is important that they show the Medicare card and then they also show their supplemental card.
If that's their combination, is that correct? Like if they have a Medicare and a supplemental.
Okay. Yes, exactly.
Got it. And if they have a Medicare Advantage only, it would be that Medicare Advantage card that they show, not the intact Medicare A and B card that they have.
Correct. And one of the things to note at the front desk, sometimes we hear, if somebody does have a Medicare supplement and then they have their Medicare card there, a lot of front desk people are a little bit confused with how the supplemental works, because if they see a name that they don't recognize for that supplemental company, they think that they don't accept that plan. And with a Medicare supplement, as long as they accept Medicare, they do have to accept the supplement, no matter what name of the company they have.
Oh, that's interesting. So I think Rich mentioned that, so if you have that combination of Medicare and supplemental, your Medicare covers 80%. I imagine that the 20% is covered by the supplemental.
That's correct.
Um, Gotcha. So what I heard is that as long as physician practices are participating with Medicare, they're likely also going to be, with that supplemental as well. So they're going to be able to enter both information, Medicare and supplemental.
Yeah.
Yes, because the supplement doesn't have any say in what claims get paid. It's actually Medicare who runs the show for that part. So
Gotcha.
as long as they take Medicare, they do have to take their supplemental insurance.
Excellent. That's good to know. I think from a 80-20 rule, we at least understand that Medicare will cover as primary 80%, 20% supplemental. But you're right. I think the confusing part is more like if we know we're participating in Medicare, we certainly don't know about the supplemental, but having to put in both information, that's helpful. We at least know that, that 80% is going to be covered as long as they're participating in Medicare. Got it.
Absolutely.
I try to relay to our customers, like if you do call your doctor and ask what you have, you don't want to just say the carrier, because most of the carriers sell both. So if they say Aetna or Cigna, Humana, they all have a supplement and advantage plan. So if they call their doctor's office and say, I have Aetna, the doctor may not accept the Aetna Medicare Advantage plan. So they may say no, not just misunderstanding that they have a Medicare supplement. So we make sure we tell people I have a Medicare supplement with XYZ company. That way that they do know they're full on Medicare with the supplement.
And that's excellent, guys, because I think patient education can go, really does go a long way, particularly when, you're helping them to say, this is how you need to explain it, and because it's what they enrolled and what, their benefit and coverage is. It's helpful to be able to say that so that it's, both practice and patient are working together and educating themselves in the way of, oh, this is my plan. This is how it needs to work, so I am always about patient education as much as possible and be able to, empower them and say, this is my coverage and this is how it works.
Yeah, and another little tip for even just the front desk people, if they see the card and the card says it says plan with a letter after it, that is a supplemental plan.
Gotcha. Now, is that usually like the lettering of that you said Plan G or Plan?
Yeah, the most common ones that you'll see are Plan G, Plan N, or sometimes Plan F.
Okay. And is there like a co-payment typically the patient will have to hand? And my example is, a family member of ours has a Medicare and HOP. Typically, we collect 10 for, when this is like a doctor's visit because that's their copay. Is that what that means in terms of some supplementals that they would have to?
Yeah, so the supplement plan N, that has some copays. It would be $20 for an office visit or $50 at the emergency room. But the Plan G and Plan F do not have any copays.
Got it. Excellent. I learned a lot today. So let's go to the benefits and as a Medicare beneficiary, we all know about annual well visits, and so for this type of visit, that health screening, the cancer screenings and whatnot. So just as an overview, I think once your coverage starts, you can go visit your doctor at your family doctor or your primary care and get your annual visit. Is that a good barometer base that we can have that conversation? We talk about your preventative service and whatnot.
So there's a welcome to Medicare wellness visit that you can get right away. The regular annual wellness, you have to wait 1 year to get that from starting your Medicare Part B. So that's how that would work. And then the screenings and whatnot, the majority of the screenings are covered. I'm sure there's a handful that's not, but in the Medicare book, there's a list a mile long. So I would say most of the screenings are going to be covered.
Okay, awesome. And it sounds like if the practices do get like a booklet of some sort or some kind of to look at that as a reference guide, right? In the way of how they need to navigate through those screens.
Yeah, so everyone gets the Medicare and You book. So that's a great book. And then also Medicare now with online Medicare.gov, you can kind of type in type in your topic, and it'll bring you right to the page in the Medicare.gov section as well.
Gotcha. I remember that Medicare and You book. Definitely remember that.
We
There's
use
a
it,
lot of information there.
yeah, we use it very often.
Absolutely. I find that book actually very, it's in the layman's term, it's nice. It can be absorbable. There are some things that are still somewhat a little bit, confusing, but I think overall I find that, they try their best
Yeah.
to make it as, digestible and readable as possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we always make ourselves, we make ourselves available to the client also, because just reading that book, you may still have some questions in regards to that, or you just might want to hear a voice to confirm what you think you read. And that's just, another way of reaching out to us to help with that.
Fantastic. Now for the regular diagnostic studies, for example, if I need an X-ray or if I need, some kind of a lab test, again, let's look at, combinations of, the Medicare and supplemental, and then the Medicare Advantage. A referral should suffice. There wouldn't be any pre-authorizations, I don't think. That would be required. Their doctor can, issue an order, and then they would go and get their test done. Is that about
Yeah,
the
so
gist of that?
if you just have Medicare alone, obviously you're going to be paying that 20% of whatever that
Mhm.
cost is. If you had the
Mhm.
Medicare with the supplement, that should be covered after your $226 deductible is covered for any outpatient services. And then with a Medicare Advantage, that's going to be a little bit different because each plan is different as far as cost for those types of things. That's why it's really important to look and dig deep into those plans to make sure where your costs are going to lie.
That's perfect. So let's go back to you guys when, let's say I'm 65, I'm now eligible, I've gotten all my emails and books and, you name it. What should be, as a patient and even as an employee, right? I could have that age bracket in our practices as well. And so what would be your advice, going through, I got my letter, I'm eligible. What's my first step? What do I look for? And how would how do you guys guide, a newly eligible Medicare, beneficiary? I am deer with headlights. I'm bombarded with, all kinds of different mails from all different plans. And how do I, focus and and get through, like, maybe is there a checklist, or what do I need to be doing in order to get myself, ready to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Medicare, here, Jill and Rich, I am ready to do this, but I don't know where to start. I've got all this stuff, and, what do I do?
That's the question we get from pretty much anyone that's just getting ready to start. They come to. I mean, there's so many conflicting information. So the first thing we like to just get out of the way right away. We let people know, hey, just because you're turning 65, you don't have to go on Medicare. There's some factors. Let's look at: are you currently working, and do you have health coverage through your employer, or are you on your spouse's coverage? And then, if so, what kind of coverage do you have with that plan, and how much comes out of the paycheck to pay for that? And then, so we can kind of evaluate going all in on Medicare, and kind of see what would be the best option. In someone's case, if their employer is paying 100% of it and they got a great plan, well, stay with that because you don't have to pay anything toward it. However, if someone's got a $20,000 deductible and a huge chunk comes out of their paycheck every week, it might be like, okay, let's look at going the Medicare route. And we like to tell people going Medicare. It's the best coverage you can get when you see that work coverage that you have and the high deductibles. And then when you go to Medicare, it's night and day. So we do like to evaluate the whole situation. Do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay. So if I were a physician practice that an independent or private physician practices, and I'm offering, insurance coverage to my employees. So, let's say we do have one, a staff, an employee that is at Medicare eligible. So what could, as an employer, could we benefit from, in the offerings with their insurance coverage for the practice?
Absolutely. We think it's really important for employers to understand that because they can be saving a lot of money on their health care. If they're offering Medicare and a supplement to their employees, they can actually save a lot of money doing it that way. They cannot just tell them that they have to go on Medicare and take the supplement, but offering that along with their employer plan so that they have a choice there. Medicare is usually going to be less costly for the employer, and it's going to be better coverage for the employee. So we're huge advocates for that.
That's awesome. Listen, cost reduction is very important these days. Cost savings is also very important. So I think that's an added bonus to consider if that's something that, a practice is offering to their staff. Wow, I got a lot of information. So let's go to, this is all great stuff.
Hopefully we're not overwhelming you.
No, not yet anyway. The second question I have is, if I am an existing patient, I already have my Medicare coverage, and let's say I have a Medicare Advantage, or let's put two people, one with Medicare Advantage, and they want to switch into a like that Medigap supplemental combination of Medicare and supplemental, or I have the reverse. I have a Medicare supplement, but I now want to go into Medicare Advantage. So what does that change look like? And, how do you guys navigate, already enrolled patients, and what do they need to know? And also, like, is there medications they need to pay attention to, like that are covered this year but may not be covered next year, things that are important to them, that, again, I'm bombarded with a whole bunch of information, but I already know what I have. I think I've read what I needed. I'm understanding a little bit, but I have a few more questions. And what's the best approach for me in the following year?
Sure. So going from Advantage Plan to Supplement, or Supplement to Advantage Plan, you can do that during the annual enrollment period. There's also anytime there was the Advantage Plan involved, you do it during the annual enrollment period or the Part D drug coverage. And with the supplement, if someone has a supplement and they just want to shop for a lower rate, that can be done any time of year. They do not have to do that during the annual enrollment period. Okay.
Okay. So it sounds like, but anything, go ahead, Rich. Sorry.
And so the different Advantage plans. So during the enrollment period, we would look, and the plans do change every year. So as of right now, we don't know what the plans are going to look like for 2024. They're not able to be released until October 15th. They're available to us October 1st, so we can start to review them and get familiar with them. But we can't relay them to our clients till the 15th or do anything with them. But yes, so there are changes every year. So if someone has an existing Advantage plan and we just want to do a review with them, see what kind of changes there are for next year. The going back and forth between the two, they are very different. So we want to make sure that we do educate people on going from one to the other, what the different changes are going to be. As you said, there's network or no network. There's copays, no copays. Like the Advantage plans, I tell people, they kind of have a menu that goes with them. You kind of look at it and it tells you everything that you would pay, seeing a doctor doing this, getting a test done. It kind of tells you what you would pay for those.
Sharon, I think it's really important to note too, is that if you're going from a Medicare Advantage plan into a supplemental, you do have to qualify for underwriting. So you would have to be in fairly good health in order to qualify for that underwriting. With nothing major going on, you usually can qualify, and that would be something that we can pre-screen our clients for. And then with the Advantage plans, you do not have to go through underwriting to get an Advantage plan. But our recommendation every year, like Rich was saying, is to shop that Advantage plan every year to make sure you know exactly what it's going to be bringing in the following year. Doctors can get in and out of network also. So you want to make sure your doctor is still participating with that plan that you have. And then with the supplemental, we always recommend anytime you get a rate increase, because that can be switched anytime throughout the year, we always recommend giving us a call just to see if there's a lower rate that they could get and stay on the same exact plan that they have. And we usually see that there can be a savings every 2 to 3 years with the supplemental insurance, keeping them on the same plan, which is really important.
So what I'm hearing, and this is what I love that I'm hearing, is that with your clients, you know, they can come to you, whether they're existing or if they're referring someone new to you guys. You take the time to, you know, talk to your Medicare clients, help them walk through the process of, you know, making the right choice and decision into their, you know, Medicare plan, whatever that combination would be that could benefit them, and helping them, you know, the following year, you know, in the changes that, you know, potentially could be there once you guys know what those changes are and how that affects and impacts, you know, their current health, and or their doctors, if they're, you know, they're still in their network or not. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's super beneficial for the client to have a broker, someone to speak on their behalf, number one. And then number two, you never want to do this alone. A lot of people think that, you know, it's going to cost more if they use a broker. We recommend find somebody that knows what they're doing to help you along the way, because it can be overwhelming. And with using a broker, there is no cost. So if you go directly to the insurance company or through a broker, you're going to be paying the same exact amount. And a lot of people don't know that. And our big tagline is, friends don't let friends do Medicare alone. So we always make sure that they have somebody on their side.
And there you have it, folks. So how could we best, you know, reach you guys? You know, let's have your information, your website, your contact information. And actually, one other question: are you guys in the tri-state, or is it just, you know, local into the counties? How far is, you know?
So we are in the tri-state area, so we do Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. We do North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Illinois. And if we have someone we have a lot of clients that started here, they move south or move somewhere else, and that's how we've ended up in some of the other states. So, we're not opposed to getting licensed in another state if someone needed us to.
You might have a couple snowbirds, right? They're here, and then kind of go in areas where it's nice in summer and whatnot. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. So what's the best way to get, you know, talk with you guys? And so Rich,
so our website is ohlermedicareexperts.com. You could go on there, and all of our info is on there. We give everybody our cell phones. My number is 484-369-9707, and Jill's is 484-792-1179.
Excellent. Well, folks, I have to say I am educated now a lot more than I think when I first came in. I never assumed that I know a whole lot about, just because I've been in healthcare for so long. There's so many changes and things that happen, and especially with Medicare, I feel like I'm going to be more prepared at least, but I know that each year changes. But I also know that I have super awesome insurance brokers like Joel and Rich, who's going to, you know, walk me through this process when that time comes. And, you know, I can also refer a friend, and I won't let a friend, you know, suffer from not having to be able to navigate Medicare, because Lord knows we all trying to figure out which end is up in these changing times. So I really appreciate your time. I do want to take a pause for a minute if there's any questions that folks might have had or snuck in here. Let me just check to see. I did not see any questions, but I will post your information after our session, and your contact information. And if anyone wants to reach you guys and get in touch with you so that they can get help with their Medicare and enrollment upcoming.
Yep, we would love to help them. It just starts with a phone call to us.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And
we appreciate you, Sharon. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Of course. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.